Hey, welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm your host, Sal Interdonato. The Black Knight Nation podcast is brought to you by Higher Echelon, a company run by Joe Ross. He's a former Army fullback, former Army assistant coach, former Army officer. We thank Higher Echelon for always sponsoring the Black Knight Nation podcast. Check out our website, blackknightnation.com. Seth Mendelson's game story from yesterday's 24-7 win over Charlotte is up on our website. Check out our YouTube channel. There's the alma mater. There's the press conferences. There's a couple shorts here and there. Check out our YouTube channel. Give that a subscribe, and also check out our Instagram at black_knight_nation. We got some videos up there and all kinds of good stuff for you with the Army Black Knights. Welcoming Cuthbert Hutton and Seth Mendelson to the Black Knight Nation recap, as always. And thank you guys for taking it over last week as I had some computer issues. Really appreciate it. You guys were pros. And we're going to get things rolling today, talking about Army's 24-7 win. And then we're also going to talk about what's lies ahead for Army, probably their toughest game of the season at Tulane on Saturday coming up. So first off, maybe before I give my opinion of the game, you can check it out on YouTube. I gave a quick recap. Cuthbert, what was your thoughts, your initial thoughts on the 24-7 win over Charlotte?
Well, this was a tale of two halves, pretty clearly. I had predicted that Army was going to be coming out and Helms was going to be starting, I think, and I'm sure this podcast, I'm going to be saying lots of very insulting things to the Charlotte football team and fan base. It's not personal, it's business, but I think coming into this game, it was pretty clear that the 49ers were going to be overmatched by Army. I totally anticipated Helms getting the start. I think that in terms of Helms versus Coleman, it's not that the coaching staff doesn't like Coleman. It's that Helms fits so nicely into the scheme that they wanted to give him the opportunity to run plays against, frankly, an inferior defense. The first half of this very much had the feeling of a week 0 or week 1 game against Holy Cross or Morgan State or something like that, where we are running simple plays, base packages. We're trying to work on fundamentals and assignments. We had 4 drives in the first half, 2 touchdowns and a field goal. The field goal was almost blocked. Hard to complain with that. Obviously, I think we probably should have been scoring at will, but 3 out of 4 when the starters are playing is really, really, I think that's about as good as we can get. As expected, Coleman comes in the second half when the game is well in hand. Unfortunately, at that point, we begin to sputter. The defense, they played well in the first half. As the backups came in the second half, things got a little shakier. Obviously, the garbage time touchdown. Do I feel good about the victory? We could have won more than 24-7, but in terms of what we needed to do and work on our fundamentals, I think it was just what we needed. I think there's plenty of things for Coach to be upset about, which is good because he needs a lot of fire under these boys if we're going to stand a chance in the Big Easy this upcoming weekend. So, the first half I was very pleased with. The second half looked like a mildly competitive scrimmage. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, Seth, maybe you can give us a little insight. After the press conference, we talked to Coach Monken a little bit about, the effort on both sides of the ball. And maybe you could provide our viewers with a little bit of insight about what he was telling you after the game.
Right. Yeah, after the press conference, I got Monken, took him on the side. And he was very nice to give me a couple of minutes, and I asked him. He was very tough on the team after the game. He was interviewed by the CBS Sports announcer, and he was very tough with her. And then he was just as tough in the press conference, saying that he wasn't happy with the way the offense played in the last quarter and half of the third quarter. And then he wasn't happy with the defense on the last drive that they gave up that touchdown with 8 seconds left. And the word he used several times was he has a standard, and he expects a team to play to that standard at all times. And he felt they didn't. I'm going to be honest with you. I was a little bit surprised. Yes, we could have won by more. Absolutely. I think they took the metal off the pedal when they brought Coleman in. We were up 24-0, and he struggled moving the ball. Maybe the team struggled. The offense struggled getting opening holes for him. I don't know the answer to that. I haven't seen the film. I'm not going to be privy to the film. They'll know that more than I will. But I was a little bit surprised by that. But as I said in my story this morning, last night and this morning, I think that Monken is trying to light a fire, as you said, Cuthbert, for the big game this coming weekend. So this is a very important game in the season. Going down to a very good Tulane team who's only lost once to a ranked team, Mississippi. And I think he's trying to do what he has to do to get his team motivated and say, hey, guys, you played okay. You're going to have to play better next week if you want to beat Tulane. And you're going to have to play better in the weeks to come with Air Force and with Navy and with even Temple's a decent team. That quarterback's dynamite at Temple. So I think this was his message. But he clearly wasn't happy, and he didn't think the team reached the standard that he expects of them.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, I don't know if I asked this question during the press conference. Maybe I did it, but they were happy with grinding out these drives, right? They were happy with Cuthbert and Seth, the 17 play, 85 yard, 10-minute and 30-minute drop. They're nice. They're nice job. They're nice. They're beautiful things to some people, to some not, maybe not. But when you got a team like Charlotte, I mean, it would be nice to jump out to, take longer than almost a quarter to get a touchdown on the board. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of my take a little bit. They kind of were happy with grinding it out, and to me, still the big plays are missing in this offense. Even though Kel Helms did have a 50-yard run that he got tracked down, I guess, at the 1 and then snuck in on the next play for a touchdown. They did have the big pass play to Noah Short, 44 yards, from Helms to Short in the second half. But what else? What else are you doing on offense? They tried to run outside. They were really set on getting Noah Short established on the outside on the pitch play to keep Charlotte honest. And it got nowhere. Noah was getting frustrated. It looked like it was not getting anywhere, those plays. He had to really work to get 5 yards on an outside pitch play. And I know that maybe that's a sign for things to come, right? I know that you can't just run completely up the gut against Tulane. They're going to be ready for that stuff. So you have to have some tape and keep defenses honest. But man, I mean, it seems like sometimes it's hard. Like scoring a touchdown is hard for them, And I get it. This is Army. They're a mentally tough team, but sometimes it's got to be a little easier. That's all I'll say. I don't know what your thoughts are, Cuthbert.
Well, the point you made just now about the long grinding drives that we had when the first team was out in the first half, as I said, it felt like this was week 1 and we're hosting Lehigh, where, we're not doing anything flashy by and large. We're going to be running our base package. We're just going to be eating clock and working on what we need to work on and getting ready for the season. Unfortunately, this is our 6th game of the year. It's just such a shame that we have to be doing this now. But, we got back to 500. There were some things I did like. Coleman struggled a little bit when he came in the second half. I will say that last drive that he had where the field goal ended up getting blocked. Oh, my goodness, the special teams, we can get to that later. But he was, I thought, carrying the ball well and making good decisions on that drive. And the 17-play, 85-yard, 10-minute, 51-second drive you referenced, Sal, what I liked about that was following the Hayden Reed fumble. So Reed was out because after that fumble, he was out until the second half. I appreciated and was heartened by seeing the contributions that were made by the running back core. Carson Smith, Briggs Bartosh, Jake Rendina, they all played a hand in that drive. They were all making good runs. Carson Smith ultimately got the touchdown there. That's one of the big things we've been missing all year is a consistent running back core. It can't be 100% on Helms or Coleman. We've got to be able to have running backs who can take it up the middle. It's got to be more than either QB follow or, midline option to Noah Short. So I was at least happy to see that, and I think this is something hopefully we can build off of. But as I said when I started the podcast, Charlotte is a really bad team. And if we think we are going to see any sort of defensive front like this again this year, we are fooling ourselves.
It's a good point.
By the way, guys, UAB just fired its coach. Trent Dilfer got fired from UAB.
Dilfer finally, it's gone. Oh, the fighting Trent Dilfers.
You're saddened. Cuthbert, you're very sad. And, big James Franklin fired by Penn State today, and Trent Dilfer fired by UAB, just so the American get on the news wire. The Americans on the news wire today.
Whatever it takes to stay relevant.
To Cuthbert's point, the two games we've won over the last 2 weeks were against two of the worst teams in the league. Probably two of the bottom. They may be the worst two teams in the league. So a win's a win, and everybody plays bad teams, almost everybody plays bad teams in the American. There's good teams and bad teams. I think that Monken realizes what we're going up against, as I said before. I got to tell you, this was one of the fastest games I've seen at West Point, and they have fast games often. The game was over. It started at 5 after. I think it started at 12:07. The game was over by 3 o'clock, maybe 3:01. And that's a fast game for college football. And remember, it's games on TV, so they force some extra timeouts, or those 3-minute timeouts to get some commercials in there. This was a really fast game. It was one of the most boring games I've seen in a long time. To Sal's point, we had two exciting plays: the run and the pass. And besides that, it was grinded out football. And I agree. I think they're trying to, it was a practice game. It was a scrimmage, but made sure we won, and we did. And now, hopefully they learned something going into a key game. The second half of the season starts Saturday, and it's almost like they're starting over again. They're 3-3. They can still have a very good season if they run out. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to, but they could. 9-3 is a good season. And who knows, the way this league is, having only 2 losses in the American could get you into the championship game. I doubt it, but it's possible. So I think that they looked at this game as a great chance to experiment, win the game. Monken jumped on everybody, and now hopefully they're going to have a great practice and go down to Tulane on Thursday or Friday morning, wherever they leave, and hopefully beat the Green Wave.
Brendan in Jersey checking in saying CBS Sports was hurting to get all their ad time in. Yeah, Seth, I think we were in the press conference by 3:10, so I think it might have even ended before 3 o'clock. I think it might have ended before 3 o'clock this game.
Possibly.
Yeah, just the defense. We got to tip our caps to the defense. They played another really great game. I mean, but that Charlotte offense was pathetic. I mean, to be nice, it was pathetic. They didn't throw a ball downfield. They threw a lot of short routes, and they didn't move the ball before that last drive where they scored. They had 119 total yards of offense. And I mean, did they have some runs here and there? Did they get some first downs? Yes, but the defense played pretty well. Caleb Fortner forced a fumble in the fourth quarter, recovered by Steve Nadozie. Cuthbert, you might know better than I or Seth. The defense might have 7 or 8 turnovers this year. I think somewhere around there, maybe. Steve Nadozie's been involved in 3 of those. So
yes, yeah.
Get him on the field more. Get him on the field more if he's got. I know he's like the third safety. I know he's behind Colin Madison, but I don't know. Tulane's probably they don't pass, right? Seth, they're kind of and Cuthbert would know too. They're kind of a 50-50 team a little bit with the run and the pass, sort of, right? I'd like to see Steve Nadozie on the field more, to be honest with you.
Well, they got that guy Jake. What's his last name? Retzlaff. The guy from BYU who transferred to Tulane, and he led BYU. They won their first 7 or 8 games last year, and they were highly ranked at one point. And they gave him a lot of the credit. And then he left BYU for personal reasons. He did something that wasn't allowed on campus, and nothing illegal, but something that they frown upon. And he ended up at Tulane. So they got a good quarterback. This league has a lot of good quarterbacks. More than most leagues at this level, at the level they're at.
Maybe you're right. Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah.
Well,
we had two teams scored 60 points yesterday.
Something that you had said earlier, Seth, about honestly almost being bored at the game. I was honestly feeling that way in the second half. I'm on the phone with my uncle. We're watching the game together, yapping about what's going on. And at one point I just said, I really just almost wish this game was over. I've got to keep watching it because I need to be taking my notes and following what's going on. But it really did. It felt like a scrimmage. in the second half. And when the CBS Sports broadcasters come on and say, oh, no, Tim Albin, he told us before halftime he was very deliberate that if Zach Wilkie came out and couldn't make things happen, he was going to be going to Grayson Lofkins. It's like he's telling the broadcasters that he's planning on taking his quarterback out after one more series. What is happening here? This is like an organized joint practice between two teams. When Charlotte on their third drive went for it on fourth down from the Army 15, it told me everything I needed to know about just how they thought they were going to be able to win this game or even stay in it. They just figured to themselves, look, fellas, there's no sense in even trying a field goal. It's already over. At that point, I think they were down 7-0 or 14-0. So really just a lackluster presentation across the board. And I don't say that because we played particularly poorly, but just the whole thing was uninspired, unfortunately. And that just happens sometimes.
I will say this: they opened with that long drive, right? Seth took up about 6.5 minutes, but did Casey Larkin have that tackle by the sticks to prevent the fourth down on that drive? I'm trying to remember, but I mean, they ate up a lot of that first quarter, and I'm like, oh, right.
They did. We were talking about it. It was 7 or 8 minutes they took up, and we were like, wow, that's interesting, but they didn't score.
And to Cuthbert's point, get some points out of it. You're taking all that time up, you're driving down the field, and you got nothing for it. So I don't know. This is not a 49ers podcast by any stretch of the imagination, but it was just like that kind of started to like, oh, here we go. This is going to be the game, one of these games, I guess. But, defense comes up big. Casey Larkin with a fourth down stop. Eric Ford had a sack. Sean Donovan, a sophomore nose tackle, had a little sack dance, little sexy Dexy sack dance after he combined with a Cale Newton on a sack in the fourth quarter. Cale Newton delivered a pretty big hit. I was in the south end zone, and they looked at it for targeting. It wasn't targeting, but Cale Newton I believe he's a sophomore too. You saw some young defensive players get in the game. You didn't see young offensive players get in the game. So I thought this was a game where we might see Zach Mondale at the end of the game, maybe take a couple knees or maybe actually take a snap and hand the ball off. But it just didn't materialize because Army settled for field goals a couple times in the second half and didn't make them. So 24 points was what they got against Charlotte. And man, let's hope. Even what did Cale Helms say after the game, Seth? That they just needed a little bit more in the second half, right? I mean,
yeah, he felt. Again, this is after they took him out. He felt. That he didn't want to say anything about his teammates, but I'm not sure he would have if he even wanted to. But the bottom line is that they took their foot off the pedal, and you can't get mad, when you're sitting there saying, okay, we're up 24-0, you're starting putting in subs, so the team starts changing, the mental attitude of the team changes. That touchdown, their score at the end, they had 4 or 5 subs in there, and and Monken says, well, they should stop the ball too, but that's why they're subs. They're subs because they're not as good as the starters, and they scored. All of us were rooting for them to have a shutout. Everybody in the press box were like, we want that shutout. We want the first shutout in 5 years, and everybody was disappointed. Almost like we lost the game. It was funny, but again, Army won the game. They're now 3-3 halfway through the season, and they're in an okay position for the rest of the year to have a decent season if they perform. Again, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Monken said these things, I believe. He won't say it, but I believe, because he wants to motivate the team for the biggest game of the year up until obviously not including the academy games, because Tulane's a really good team at Tulane, and it's an important game. It's an important game to win. Army wins this game, they're in it.
It's a winnable game too. We'll get to that later. Brendan checking in saying that, to my point, there were times to take shots. There were times to pass. I said in the press box in the first half, are they even going to attempt to pass in this game? It didn't even feel like they wanted to.
You said that.
You didn't want to throw the ball against Charlotte. You didn't want to try to get your passing game some live game reps against Charlotte. I mean, they threw a short pass to Toby Alawale, good catch, 6 yards, and then a Noah Short, 44 yards. That's it. That was their completions for the game against Charlotte. Man, they're going to need some pass plays against Tulane to click. They're not going to be able to run the ball 60, 70 times against Tulane on Saturday. I thought that they would take a little bit more chances through the air. They did not want to. They were happy with grinding out. Let's go. They
didn't want to show anything.
I don't know, Seth. I ask Coach Munkins.
Maybe they didn't want to show anything, Seth.
Yeah. I'm like, you're halfway through the season, and you got to have this, you got to be like, hey, I'm disappointed that we didn't put in a full game against Charlotte. I mean, to me, maybe I'm the dark cloud of this podcast, but to me, that's not a great sign. It's not a great sign.
Well, if nothing else from this game, I think what came out is that we have a tried and true QB1 now in Cale Hellams. I said it in the article that you posted that morning, Sal, with the predictions. I had said that I predicted that Cale Hellams was going to start for the very purpose of getting the reps to be the established QB1 moving forward. I think that's exactly what we saw. So I think that's probably a net positive, that at the very least now we can put the QB by committee discussion to bed. But then again, if we go to Tulane next weekend and we go 3 and out on our first 2 drives, maybe Monken gets cagey, to Brendan's point here, getting cagey, and puts back in Coleman. Because he has also had success this year. I mean, he orchestrated the comeback against North Texas. So,
Real quick, I asked Monken about the decision to put Coleman in the game and was it score related or not. And he said that basically that Cale Hellams had taken some bumps and, got banged up a little bit. And he thought that, Coleman, I guess through practice time and what he's done this season, deserves some playing time at the end of that game. And he put Coleman in. We'll see what happens. I think you're right, Cuthbert. But Cale Hellams said in the press conference that he found out Friday he was the starting quarterback. I mean, I don't know. I guess they're having the friendly competition during the week. And if he was the best quarterback of the week, I don't know. But from what we're seeing in games, Cuthbert, like you said, Cale Hellams right now looks like QB1.
I predict at the press conference on Tuesday, he will say the same thing he said last week, which is it's an open competition. I think it's going to be this way for the rest of the year, barring injury. And this is what it is. But I think that Cale will start again I'll be shocked if he doesn't start against Tulane on Saturday.
Guys, if you're watching right now, have any comments or questions for us, please send them. We appreciate it. Anything else you guys want to touch about? Maybe we'll touch about special teams. There were a couple missed field goals. There was one that was blocked at the end in the fourth quarter where I guess the guy on the edge, Monken said, was supposed to block the edge guy. He didn't, and the edge guy had a clean run to the football for the block. So that was an assignment kind of thing. The second kick was just not, just wasn't accurate. But what was a good sign here that we must say is that Army did a 2-minute drill again at the end of the first half and scored points, right? They got their second. They did it against UAB at the end of the first half against UAB. They had a short amount of time to drive down the field and get some points out of it. They got a field goal from Dawson Jones last time at UAB, and they got another field goal from Dawson. The 45-yard, Seth, is that right?
I don't remember.
I thought it was 45.
38.
Huh?
It was a 38 at the end of the first half.
Oh,
and
38.
I was very happy with that 2-minute drill. I think we saw a lot of that smart sort of forethought in play calling in terms of getting that lined up and set up. I will say, at least watching it in real time, it looks like that first field goal was a hair's breadth away from being blocked, which I was not particularly pleased with. Then I sort of forgot about it and sort of chalked it up to a fluke until that third field goal that was, well blocked in earnest. And then in the middle, you've got Dawson Jones. He comes out, he's got a big boot, and he fires it. And I'll tell you what, on TV, that second field goal, that kick was straight as an arrow. Unfortunately, they happened to be on the right hash, which meant that it went about 5 yards, wide. But, it had good leg to it. And he's still young and he's still getting his feet under him. I could see Dawson Jones in a year or two being a very, very dangerous kicker. I think he's still just very green, but I think he's got quite a bit of potential. We've got to get that blocking scheme cleaned up, though, because that's the exact type of thing that will absolutely kill you, especially if you're playing a team like Air Force or Navy or Tulane or in a bowl game and you're really up against stiff competition and every single point matters. If you miss an extra point, you get blocked on a field goal. That's an absolute momentum killer, and that can take you out of a game. So whatever that assignment issue was, whether it happened once or twice, I know Monken in the post game said he didn't think that first field goal was that close to being blocked. On TV, it looked like it was very close to being blocked. We've got to get that sorted out. Saturnio needs to get on top of those guys and make sure that we can get a clear path to the field goal.
I have a thought in my head. We're going to get to this question in a second, but on the kicking point, I got to talk with Dawson Jones' dad before the game and found out a little bit more about Dawson Jones and how he was basically since I believe the 7th grade, I could be wrong, has gone to a kicking guru, Dan Orner, and Dan Orner has really trained some kickers in the NFL and some of the best college kickers too. So this has been something where he's really worked at. So I guess I expect Dawson Jones to bounce back from this. He bounced back against Tarleton State, and there's a story there that I might tell later in the season about what helped them bounce back against after the Tarleton State game, and who might have helped them bounce back after the Tarleton State game. It's a good story. I'm hoping to write it maybe before the Air Force game. I could write that story. Be really cool to let Black Knight Nation know a little bit about that. Seth, any other comments about special teams before I go to this question and a thought?
I'm interested about this question also, so go ahead.
Yeah, Giant 16, we appreciate you watching in the comments. Guys, love the pod. I thought I heard on one of the podcasts that the blocking is different when the quarterbacks are changed. Can you explain why that is? Cuthbert, you want to take that?
Well, fundamentally, it's because Cale Helms is primarily an under center quarterback, whereas Dwayne Coleman is primarily a shotgun quarterback. So blocking schemes obviously are going to have similarities when you're running sort of a triple option flex bone style offense. But when you're running the gun option, what that does is that will affect the way in which the offensive line picks up reads and make sure to get their blocking down. Basically, I think of it as being two sides of the same coin, where Dwayne Coleman is playing primarily out of shotgun and Cale Helms is playing primarily under center. Thankfully, Brady Small, our starting center, he has said in interviews just this past week that he's immensely comfortable with both quarterbacks. So he doesn't mind whether it's under center or he's doing a shotgun snap. So that's really, really good. And so basically the other influence it has on the blocking scheme has to do basically just with the types of plays that get run. When you are running the Cale Helms, more sort of Bryson Daly style, it's a lot of QB follows and, lead dives and things like that. Whereas the Dwayne Coleman shotgun set, that's more working in space.
Yeah. I want to say on the big play, the 50-yard play was the QB counter play, and where Cale Helms fouled pulling tackle Teddy Williams, and Teddy Williams made a great block. I want to say Samari Howard had another good block downfield that helped spring Helms for that 50-yard run. So to run those QB counters, I'm not sure. I'm sure Coleman's ran them before, but Helms ran that play pretty effectively. It's a play that Christian Anderson used to run a lot and have some success, if you know the name Christian Anderson back in the day for Army, back in the day, 4 or 5 years ago, So
4 years ago.
Here's my thought real quick, guys. They have some success running the 2-minute drill with Cale Helms. Could we see them at some point this year with Helms under center or in shotgun, run a no huddle? Run and you don't necessarily have to run a no huddle to run as many plays as possible, but you could run a no huddle to where you kind of maybe, I don't know, is there any advantage, do you think, guys, to running like a no huddle for Army? I know they've done it in the past a little bit. Maybe was that the Thatcher days, Cuthbert, or no, when they did more no huddle than anything else?
They didn't run as much no huddle. I think about Army running no huddle way back in the day, pre-Monken, maybe 2010 and earlier, when Army was honestly one of the first teams that started having the giant play calling placards on the sideline, where you know, got some guys holding up a picture of Daffy Duck, and somebody's holding up a picture of a bowl of spaghetti, and somebody's holding up a picture of a, you know what I mean, the Simpsons, you know, sitting on the sofa or something like that. And so basically they still tried to maintain clock control and dominance. So it wasn't necessarily an up-tempo offense, but it was a no huddle offense. And it was, you know, oh, look at this, everybody looks over, and if you see the unicorn, it means that you're going to do a down block, and if you see the atom bomb, it means that they're running a Hail Mary or whatever it was. And all the announcers loved it. Not that it mattered. That was the heart of the dark days, as I call it. But that's the only time in my memory that we've significantly run a no huddle offense. I would love to see it. Frankly, something else I'd love to see, if we could just get some more offensive shifts. Could we get up to the line, get set, and then with 10 seconds to go, rather than just sitting there, can we just shift into another formation just to throw a wrinkle in? I feel like every time I'm looking, I watched Air Force and Navy play yesterday, and I watch these offenses, and I just think, can we do something to throw a little monkey wrench into the defense and maybe running a no huddle series of downs? You know what I mean? I'll tell you what, Tulane's not going to be expecting us to run up tempo. I'm not saying we should, but at least it'd be something different. Maybe catch them unaware, catch them on their heels.
Yeah, I'm not saying every series, but every once in a while that it's not a 2-minute drill, you know, and Helms seems like he can handle it, and he seems pretty comfortable in that. And in those situations, he's not running like up the middle and getting hit by 3 or 4 different players in those situations. You know, he can have some space to operate a little bit more in the running game. So I don't know. I've never called a play in my life. I don't want to, you know, it's just an idea that popped into my head. If he's been pretty, you know,
I'll tell you that I think Helms, after his 50-yard run where he ran out of gas, and he even said, he goes, I was exhausted. He said, I think they went right to the line of scrimmage. I don't think they went into a huddle. So and he said something about that in the press conference, that they wanted to score real quick after that. They went down to the 1-yard line. So they did run a no huddle on that play. What I'd like to see is more use of the tight end. And I would just like to see using because I think a tight end, and listen, they know better than I do. I'm not a football coach either. But, boy, getting a tight end into the game and the passing routes can change things around dramatically. You can take 1 or 2 defensive players with them. And Army uses a tight end mostly as another offensive lineman. I would love to see him do something else once in a while.
They did say on the broadcast that Pelosi had 10 pancake blocks against UAB. I haven't had a chance to try and track down how many pancakes he had yesterday. Based on Charlotte's lackluster defense, I would have to think it'd be plenty of them. If there was one play that I could have us add to our offensive repertoire, could we get a running back screen? I don't think I've ever seen Army run a screen ever. And Navy ran one last year in the Army-Navy game, and it burned us. And I'm so upset. No one will ever see it coming. Can we just get one screen? It can't be that hard. Defensive linemen are expecting to break through our offensive line when they're in pass coverage. So, you know, when they're pass blocking, the defensive line is expecting to be able to get to the quarterback. They're not going to be expecting a running back screen. I just feel like if we can get it to Hayden Reed in space, I don't know.
Well, I think Briggs Bartosh would be the guy for that, to be honest with you. Get Briggs Bartosh in space. I mean, he's shown that he has some explosiveness. I think he would be the guy. That's me. Sorry, Seth. Go ahead.
I remember, I think it was either 2002, during the Berry regime, which, of course, was a dark ages too. We did actually run a screen. I think it was against Cincinnati. and it was successful. Of course, that was probably the only play. But they did run a screen. I remember I was in the stands then, and I remember saying to my friend who was with me, I haven't seen Army in 2002 or 2003, whatever year that was. I haven't seen Army run a screen in 10 years before that. So I think we probably have run maybe 2 screen passes in 30 years.
30 years, come on.
It might have been the Tyler Robinson back in the day. Tyler Robinson was a pretty good talent out of the backfield with Carlton Jones. I think he played a year or two at Army, then went to Duke, maybe. I could be wrong. I think he transferred to Duke. So I'm thinking that for some reason that sits in my head as a screen pass, but who knows? Yeah. So I mean, we're just spitballing here. We're just firing out a couple things, to talk about. That's all to get your minds thinking a little bit. I guess are we done with the wrap? Let's see. I think we're good with comments. Are we done with the wrap so far? Oh, here we go. My fault. Brendan saying he thought that they actually had a decent amount of shifts yesterday.
And they may have. They did. They were running some shifts.
It was Tyler Robinson, 98 yards.
There we go.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry
about that. Go ahead.
No, I mean, they were running some shifts yesterday. I appreciate that the ethos of our team and the character of our team is that, we are going to tell you exactly what we're going to do, and then we're going to do it, and we're going to make you stop us. And I think that works. I think that goes hand in hand with the mission of the United States Military Academy. I think I really do like it. That being said, I do think we probably could work to open things up a little bit, not get too desperate, but try to just get things a little bit looser and open up the playbook to keep those defenses honest. Yesterday was a difficult time in which to do that because you're playing such subpar competition. I will say, I know this isn't a 49ers podcast, like you said, Sal, there were a lot of coaching changes in the AC this year. And I thought that Tim Albin getting hired from Ohio to Charlotte was probably on paper the best hire of the year, but the cupboards are just bare over there. They got nothing. And now you've got 49er fans on Twitter saying he was a bad hire. I don't think he was a bad hire. He just needs a couple of years. But compared to what Casey Keeler is doing at Temple, or Abel is doing at Rice, I mean, Charlotte is in a bad, bad way.
One transfer window away, one good transfer window away to being taking maybe a step. Army was 8 of 14 on third down yesterday. Charlotte was 5 of 14. But that's almost like the 2 of 16 Army had against East Carolina. Wow. So good. All we probably talked about this Charlotte game enough. We can look ahead to Tulane, and the game's at noon, right? The game's at noon.
The game's at noon Eastern time.
Yeah. I think it's got probably like an ESPN2 game. Hopefully, Tulane's 5-1. Army 3-3. A rematch of last year's 2024 American Championship game that was played in pretty cold temperatures that Tulane didn't really want much to do with in that game. Army, played a physical, methodical game, and just 34-14, the game was over. I mean, different teams, obviously, rosters have changed at Tulane. Army's roster has changed a lot. Seth and I were talking about the defense of Army. There's a lot of seniors on this defense now for Army. There are not a lot of underclassmen that are start on this defense and play, pretty significant snaps for Army. So, it's guys who have played since prep school, some of these guys, and now here's a test. Go and slow down. The last 11 quarters, the defense has given up 2 touchdowns. Is that right? Or 1 touchdown? The first team defense.
The first team defense would be 1 touchdown. One touchdown.
Yeah, since the first quarter against East Carolina, the first team defense has only let in 1 touchdown.
Wow.
Right.
Play like that, and you give your team 100% a chance to beat Tulane. You know.
Well, and some of my side hustling that I do involves looking at the American Conference writ large, and I can tell you right now, Tulane obviously is a very, very good team. They're flying under the radar a little bit because of that loss to Ole Miss, which is a little ridiculous in my mind that they lose to the number. I don't know what they are in today's AP poll, but top 5. And they lose to So they lose and to Ole Miss, and all of a sudden it's like, well, their season's over. It's like, no, not so fast. What I will say though is, while Retzlaff, who came over from BYU, is a very, very talented quarterback and has done very well, they have not been able to replace Mekhi Hughes, the running back who went to Oregon, who is now in the transfer portal a second time because he's not getting used in Oregon as he thought he would be. Just a lesson to all y'all out there who think it's a smart move to jump out of the G5. Kudo. So what I will say is to shut down Tulane's offense, you've got to get to Retzlaff. A tremendous amount of their offense runs through him. In my opinion, too much of their offense runs through him. And that's more than just the fact that he's passing. It's also his ability to be mobile. And I understand this is 100% pot calling the kettle black when an Army fan says that too much of your offense is being run through your quarterback. So trust me, I get it. But we run the triple option, and that's kind of the deal. If we can get Retzlaff off base, if we can stop him from being able to be mobile and scramble, and if we can get him to start giving up some incompletions, their offense will begin to idle, and we could have a chance if our offense can then execute, control the ball, eat clock. Us winning this game, I think it's going to have to look like the game against Kansas State. We're going to have to play flawlessly. Coach was talking about missed tackles, and we're getting better on missed tackles, but are we ever going to get back to that Kansas State 3 missed tackles over an entire game? Probably not, but we got to shoot for it. We got to aim for it. And if we can just keep Retzlaff under control, Tulane will not run away with it. I don't think.
Statistically speaking, Tulane has the 94th best defense in the country out of 127 teams, I think it is. So that's extremely average. And their offense is 59, so they're right smack in the middle there. So this is a winnable game. If Army comes out and plays like they played against Kansas State, to your point, it's definitely a winnable and very important game for the second half.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I look at the ball control, like you said, Cuthbert, and you look at, obviously flawless play. There can't be any turnovers. What happened after Army turned over the ball against Charlotte, and how, Coach Monken got into Hayden Reed, and, Hayden Reed didn't play until the fourth quarter, I think. After that, he didn't play until Cale Helms came out of the game and Dwayne Coleman went in. And, there's got to be a message. You can't do that. And I think Cale Helms does a better job. You don't throw the ball much, right? But Cale Helms doesn't really force any passes. And if he doesn't have anything, he'll roll out and he'll throw the ball away. You play it that way. That East Carolina Tulane game was kind of a weird game on Thursday night, where Tulane was up 12-0. Then East Carolina was up 16-12. Tulane ends up taking the lead, and then they intercepted a pass in the end zone, right, Cuthbert, for the win or something like that? Is that what happened against East Carolina?
So Tulane was having serious issues in the first half, getting bogged down once they reached the red zone. So they had every right, should have been winning that game by much more by the time they got to halftime, but they had to settle for, I think it was 4 field goals in the first half, because they were just getting bogged down in the red zone and they couldn't punch it in. So, Army's bend, don't break defense. I know that's obviously coach talk, but if we can do some bend, don't break defense, we can hold them to some field goals. Then third quarter came out, East Carolina, all of a sudden the Pirates remembered how to play football. They jumped ahead 16-14. And then once sort of Tulane remembered they were playing football in the fourth quarter, they themselves put up another 14 points and ended up taking it 26-16. It really should have been a bigger win by Tulane. They should have been winning by more at halftime, but they, for all of the offensive production that they were getting out of Retzlaff, I think he had something like 340 passing yards. It's not like he had a bad game, but they're getting deep into opposition territory and they're having trouble finishing. So that could be that's Army's sweet spot on defense, especially when we're playing a team that we are overmatched by. So that there could be something there.
Yeah, I mean, red zone defense is something Nate Woody preaches. The red zone defense, and it's been better. It's been better. I think a guy that we haven't really talked much about this year is Jaden Mays, and Jaden Mays is a guy who's made some big plays for Army in the past, especially last year. I don't know. Maybe this is a game that there's some turnovers involved, and maybe Jaden Mays can have a hand in some. He's played some steady corner. He's not getting beat much, but maybe this is the game he can make some plays for Army. It's good to see Caleb Fortner force a fumble against Charlotte, maybe gets that going a little bit. And the defense has to not only play good in the red zone, maybe even force a turnover. Maybe instead of bobbling a potential interception, bringing that interception in and making a difference and stopping a drive. If that can happen, I mean, this is important. Seth, talk about the importance of this game. I mean, they're 3-3 right now, 4-3 with Air Force.
I keep talking about it. It's well, not only 4-3, but they'd be 3-2 in the conference, and again, you have the elite teams in the conference, and then you have the non-elite teams. This would put Army back towards the elite schools and a chance. You got games coming up against we have Tulsa, Temple, very beatable games, both home. Of course, Navy is not a league game, and then UTSA, which is where are they here? I don't know where they are. Sorry, they're.
If you can get to 5-3, 6-2 in conference, it's from where you started at 0-2. You take it. You take it. So we'll see. They won 2 in a row.
Well, listen, the bottom line is that the bottom line is getting into winning the Commander-in-Chief trophy at this point. Winning the Commander-in-Chief trophy, getting into a decent bowl game, and finishing strong the second half. If they can go. Listen, optimistically, let's say go 5-1. That's the best I see them going. That's a good season. That means they're going 8-4, and that's a good season to me, considering it's kind of a rebuilding year. We lost our All-American quarterback, Captain America. We lost him, and if they can do that, especially they were 1-3. And let's be honest, they lost 2 games in overtime at home. Both those games were winnable. Both those games we had a chance to win. And that's a shame, but it is what it is. I got something else. Are we done talking? I do have something to talk about scheduling. If we can talk.
Please go, Seth. Go.
I did some around, and I was told that as of now, Wake Forest is the FBS school. Army will be playing next year, apparently at Wake Forest. I do not know if there's a home game coming up in the future with Wake Forest coming to Army, at least for the next couple of years after that. And I'm told that tomorrow, Monday, they are going to announce who the FCS team is. And what my sources tell me, it's going to be a Patriot League type team. So that means a team could be the Patriot League or a team similar to a Patriot League, which leads me to believe because I know that some of the Ivy League schools would like to play Army again. So my fear is that it could be a Princeton or a Yale because I know they both want to play Army again. But apparently we're going to find out tomorrow who that FBS team is for next year, and that will be the opening game of the new stadium, of the revamped stadium. What my friends in the Ivy League tell me is that Yale wants to be that team. Because of their history with Army for so long, so many years back. I don't know whether they're the team or not. I have no idea. We'll find out within 24 hours. But right now, it's Wake Forest. As I said, right now, it's Wake Forest. It's interesting they said it that way, which means it could change.
Breaking news.
But I think Wake Forest. I think that's a good team for us.
You know what? We're just going to call here now. Army Yale first game of the new Michie Stadium, Labor Day weekend, 2026. Seth Mendelson broke it here. Real quick before we leave you guys.
We don't know if it's Yale or not, but
Seth, I'm trying to have some fun here on the Black Knight Nation podcast. So real quick, we want to tell you guys about an opportunity we have for Army fans. We have 6 tickets to the Army Navy game that we're going to be putting up for a donation to Black Knight Nation. These are A club level seats. We're going to be having them shortly. So if anybody that is interested in, putting, we're going to be asking for a donation for these tickets. These are pretty good seats. So these are not going to be, these are going to be pretty penny probably tickets. If you're interested, please leave us a message, or you can just email me at salinterdonato@gmail.com if you would have any interest in the tickets. We're going to be getting those shortly, so we just want to throw that out. Check out our blackknightnation.com. I got some quick thoughts to write. I got to get those done before the middle of the week. I got to do better than that. I got a recruiting story in the works on a kicker punter that committed to Army over the weekend during a visit. I'm hoping to get that up by Tuesday or maybe even late Monday, get that story up depending on when the kicker punter releases it on social media. And check out our YouTube, check out our Instagram, our social media, our Facebook. Seth, our Facebook Black Knight Nation is over 1,500 people now liking it, which it rose from the ashes up. So that has a lot to do with Seth Mendelson, the work that he does on Black Knight Nation, a lot to do with Cuthbert Hutton, the work he does on this podcast, getting the people's interest in Seth and I can tell you that we have multiple people coming up to us when we're at home for our home Army games, telling us how they watch this podcast, how they appreciate the work that we do. So that means a lot to me, at least. I know it means a lot to Seth. And we just want to thank you so much because you've been a constant here on the podcast, and it means a lot that we're able to get. You just have a free forum here. People know that they can come here with comments and questions. We're going to read them. We're going to give you our honest opinions on the team, and it's been a great ride this season so far. And let's make the second half of the Army season even better, guys. Again, thank you so much for watching tonight. Cuthbert and Seth, thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next probably Sunday night for a little recap of the Army Tulane game, hoping that Army can go to the Big Easy and get their 4th win of the season. Thank you so much, guys.
Go Army.
Go Army.